Well, hello again, everybody. Kyle Nedner from the Indy Star, and I know it's been a couple days, but wanted to touch on the high school basketball state finals, and also some of the upcoming basketball events that'll be coming down the pike here, and some of the released things that have happened in the last few days or in coming up. But just to start with the state finals. Great day of basketball. I've written a lot about it. Hopefully you've read that at indystar.com, but just a really fitting finish to a fun day of basketball on Saturday at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. And, Jeffersonville pulling out that win against Fishers 67-66 in overtime. And what a great crowd that was. I actually wrote about some of my favorite games. I'm going to touch on that here as well. In the time that I've been at the Indy Star, and my not only favorite game, just best games that I've covered in the state championship games. But really, I mean that Jeffersonville team, I think, was the team that we thought we were going to see in the summer. When they went 4-0 at the Charlie Hughes, they looked like a team that, coming off last year's 1-point loss in the semi-state, very motivated veteran team. And when Trey Singleton was at his best, which, he was playing like it at the end of the season, that was a team, we'd kind of talked about as a team that could challenge Fishers on a given night. And, he scored 26 points every time Fishers would kind of make that run, which they did at the end of the game, took the lead even on a 3-point play by Jason Gardner Jr. Jeffersonville seemed to have the answer, and Michael Cooper came right down, scored again to tie that game. Fishers had a chance, to win the game even at the end of regulation, and wasn't able to do it. And then Jeff had a chance actually, and had the ball back, came down the court. Singleton about made a shot off the backboard and rattled it home. It just kind of fell off to the right side there. So it goes to overtime. Again, Jeff takes the lead. Fishers comes down. Millen McCartney hits a three, and they go up by 1 with a little over a minute left. And at that point, it kind of looked like, well, maybe they are destined to come back and win this game. Garrett Weiniger, the Fishers coach, said, he fully expected Fishers to get a stop. At that point, they didn't call a timeout. He kind of felt like they had the momentum. Go ahead and play it out. Singleton backed his man down on the post and then dished to Elijah Cheeks, whose layup gave Jeffersonville the lead back with 37 seconds left. Really nice play by Singleton there to give it up, not force it. Would have been real easy just to say, hey, I'm the man. I'm going to shoot it against a double team here and roll the dice. I wouldn't have blamed him for doing that even. But then in the after they took the lead on Cheeks' shot there, Fishers had the ball back. Jason Gardner Jr. missed a contested shot. The ball goes out of bounds, 9 seconds left. And then off the baseline inbounds, Singleton kind of deflected Gardner's shot. But then, Fishers got the ball again. Cooper Zachary kind of had pulled it out to the 3-point line. And they got a timeout with 2.1 seconds left. And then on the out of bounds, not really a chance for a great look there. Millen McCartney was kind of going away from the basket and had to shoot kind of a floater from the 3-point line. Tough shot, missed it. And Jeff wins the game. First championship since 1993 for Jeff, when Sharon Wilkerson, which, big part of that story as well. He played on that team, he was Mr. Basketball, had that taken from him when he quit the Indiana All-Star team. And, he spoke on that during the week, kind of his, reflections on that and kind of this being a redemption story for him to be able to coach these guys. And, he brought up the fact that they lost the first game he coached, they lost by 50 to Cathedral. So, to go from losing by 50 2 years ago to winning the state championship, in the course of 3 seasons, pretty cool. Story for them and for their community, really. I mean, that community really showed up in full force. Very proud basketball history there at Jeffersonville, and just a really emotional victory. And Singleton, I thought, without him, they were 6-5 in the early part of the season. Played a tough schedule. They'd beefed up their schedule because they knew this was a team that could do some pretty good things or had the chance to. They got in the Hall of Fame tournament. but he played in that, but only briefly. He played in the Greenfield Central game. They ended up losing. Then he sat out the Warsaw game. The second game, he came back. They lost again to Lawrence North. About a week later, he was playing, but not fully. And then kind of got going as the season went. They still weren't really fully clicking until later on in the season, and then kind of got it going. And then in the tournament, they were just kind of a juggernaut. And you could kind of see it happening even when I covered them the week before in the semi-state when they were down to Mount Vernon, came back, won that game, tough battle, beat Lawrence North at night in another tough game. So, they beat some good teams down the stretch, beat New Albany back in the sectional, there were times where this team didn't look like a state champion, but I think we knew they had it in them if they really played a great game. They did play a great game, just a tough game against Fishers. Fishers probably, I know, still kicking themselves over some things that they didn't do in this game. But at the same time, they came from behind. They were down in the third quarter late by 9 and came back, even took the lead on a couple occasions. But yeah, 43-game winning streak goes by the boards. A chance I thought if they went into next year, they would have had a 44-game winning streak. They do lose these 5 seniors that are really good leaders for them. Between John Anthony Hall and Millen McCartney, Nathan Baker, Logan Sigler, and Justin Kirby. 5 guys that really contributed a lot throughout the season and really into last year too on that championship team. But they'll have if they would have kept that streak, they still had Gardner and Cooper Zachary coming back as sophomores. So would have been interesting to see if they could have challenged that 50-game winning streak, the all-time streak by Lawrence North. But instead they end up on a little bit down on the list. 5th on the all-time list behind that Lawrence North team of Odin and Conley. The 49-game streak Bloomington South had. Actually, Jeffersonville broke that streak also in 2010. The Addicts team of Oscar Robertson and that group, they won 45 in a row, had it broken the next year, the 56-57 season. And then and also the Warren Central team, actually, they had 46 games. So the Warren Central team of 2018 that won and went undefeated, won a state title. They lost that streak the next year. So, that's pretty much it on the all-time list ahead of them. So they go down in history. I don't know, someone asked a question, will we see these super teams, and this was not this was a team, all these guys are not transfers. I think someone else asked that, saying how many of these players are, none of these, all of these guys came up in the Fishers system. In the district. So, none of them as far as, the players on this year's team, so, but yeah, I wonder in the future how many of these kind of super teams we're going to see built through this new, not only just kind of the nature of things now, the transfer rule is going to be changing here in June. So will we see more of these these all-star teams? Not that this Fishers team was that, but, maybe some teams that will challenge these records more so. I don't know. I mean, that's just a question that was thrown out there. I don't know the answer to that, but we'll see. And then, the other games were really good too on Saturday. I thought, the 2A game between Manchester and University, really good battle. University wasn't able to really score down the stretch. They were, that was a close game right up until about the last 2 minutes there. And then, Manchester just kind of made some plays down the stretch. Hendricks, their little guard, man, he's really tough. And then Gavin Betton, Ethan Hendricks is his name. And then Gavin Betton, the, kind of the man for Manchester. He's over 2,000 career points, 6'6", going to Grace, really good player. University ends up losing that game 59-54 in Class 2A. But that's going to be, Universities, I think, is going to be a team even going into next year. They've got some good players coming back. I think a team that will be, Blake Gray had a big game. It went 6 for 10 from the three-point line. They do lose Max McComb, who he also got hot in that game from the three-point line. But yeah, I mean, I think, first chance for Manchester to get there, first chance for University to get there. It was cool. to see, the crowd there. Manchester had a massive crowd. University's a smaller school, or a private school, so they don't have the huge community necessarily, but they came out too. I mean, it's a good crowd on both sides, and Manchester wins that 2A game. In 3A, Addicks and South Bend St. Joe. South Bend St. Joe, really high scoring team. For all of the season, they're the highest scoring team in the state of Indiana, really. But this was more of sort of a grinded out type of game. I didn't think, either team really shot the ball great for a large part of this game, but Addicks came back. They were down, came back. I thought St. Joe kind of took some questionable shots down the stretch a few times to kind of to help Addicks get back into it. And, then, at the end of the game, and it looked like they took kind of another quick shot that it looked like Addicks was actually going to have the ball back with a chance to win, but the ball goes off, and Chase Knesny is there to dunk it back home with about 52 seconds left, and rattles around. It was a great play by him to throw it down, and that was impressive. I mean, he got up there. Addicks didn't block him out, and a play that he'll remember, a play that their community will remember for a long time. So their first win also in history. They were state runner-up last year. So to go ahead and win it this year, I think was something that they were, thought they could do, and certainly did. And Desmond Briscoe ends up 17 points, 11 rebounds, 5 blocks. He was, tied the 3A record for block shots, but he had 4 in the first quarter, so they were kind of able to avoid him as far as that goes late throughout the next 3 quarters anyway. But South Bend St. Joe, like I said, goes on, wins 3A. Really good team, fun to watch. Get up and down the floor. They're going to have some good pieces back as well between Ethan Roseman, Nick Shrewsbury, Elijah King. So they shouldn't be falling that far off. I mean, Knesny does graduate, and he'll go be a good player for somebody in college. But yeah, it's a tough one for Addicks, because I think they probably felt like they could have shot the ball certainly better. I think they were 3 for 15 from the 3-point line. Neither team shot it that great. It was just that type of game. But yeah, Addicks goes down to defeat in that one. And then in 1A, Orleans got the win. Orleans had gone through a tough semi-state the week before, beat the teams ranked number 1 and 2 in the state. That was Clay City and Hauser, both in really close games, right down to the wire. And, Clinton Prairie ranked number 3 in the state. So they end up knocking off the 1, 2, and 3 teams in the state. But again, kind of a cool story. Both these teams had not been to the state championship before, so huge crowd there. And sometimes in the 1A game, it maybe takes a little while to get going a little bit, just because it's early in the morning. Sometimes the 1A crowd just aren't as big as some of the others, but this one was not that way. It was huge crowd. Orleans had been had not been there. They always kind of ran up against the tough teams in their part of the state down there, Lagodi and North Davies and Bar Reeve, people like that. A lot of those teams who would go on to win state in previous years. So, but they shot the heck out of the ball. I mean, that again, that was a very high octane, very efficient game, I should say anyway. Maybe not the highest scoring. It ends up being 64-55, but both teams really played well, and Orleans shot set the 1A record for field goal shooting, 64%. Beat it by a pretty good margin also. So pretty impressive. Tom Bradley had been the longtime coach there 26 years, and he takes them to the state championship, their first ever. So pretty cool story there as well. But just a really good game, really good crowd. I think appreciative of what we saw in that one. And that turned out to be the biggest, margin of the day, 9 points, and it was close throughout. Jake McGraw, really good player, committed to IU Kokomo earlier this week. after that game. So he was tough. He got it going in the fourth quarter and in the second half, and he was really tough to stop. But again, Orleans wins it. So you had Orleans in 1A, and like I said, covered the other games as well. Was there throughout the day. Just a really fun day of basketball. Like I said, good crowd, about 24,000 plus in the building. That night session, 14,000 something. The early session, over 10,000. So it was the biggest crowd in 7 years for the early session. So really, really good crowds all day at Gamebridge. So yeah, so it was a great day of basketball. Again, like I said, I wrote about, and you can read all this at IndyStar.com, but wrote about my favorite memories of, again, I was saying memories, but it's not what I mean. I meant the best games that I've covered as far as the state finals goes. And honestly, a lot of times I kind of prefer the games that come before the state championship games, just because those are in high school gyms, and you kind of prefer the sort of the ambiance, or I do anyway, of smaller gyms. And sometimes when you're at Gamebridge, you can feel a little bit big, and if it's not completely full, it's maybe not the best atmosphere. Although most of the times I've been there at least for the 4A and the later games, it is pretty good. But I would say, I ended up putting this Fisher's Jeff game at number one. I thought it was the best of the bunch that I've covered. And then after that, I had Homestead Wrights from 2015 4A game. That was the game, and I was sitting right in front of the Wrights fans were right behind us, and they were chanting, "This is our year," as Wrights was ahead by 8 points with about 1:40 left. That game all, felt like it was over with to me. I don't know if I've covered a game quite like that. But then Taj Curry, the Homestead guard, just kind of really quickly got them right back into it. Got a couple steals, got a couple layups, and then all of a sudden the game was tied with 55 seconds. So it only took I went back and watched some of these games the other day, and they were right back into it within 45 seconds. Had tied the game again. Homestead, they took control in overtime, and then Wrights then came back at them, and Jalen Sanford made a 3-pointer in the last 5 seconds, but they were out of timeouts. The clock ran out, and the game was over. That Wrights team was incredible on offense at 92.2 points a game. I don't know if we'll see something like that. We're not going to see that very often, but really good team. Alex Stein and Jalen Sanford, Drew Smith, all had really good careers. Caleb Swanigan was on that team for Homestead, was Mr. Basketball, named a couple weeks later. He was, ended up with 20 points, 14 boards in that game. Curry was huge. Jordan Geist, Dana Bath, they were all really good players for Homestead. That was a fun game, up tempo, a lot of offense. So that was a fun one. That was the one I would have had number one before this Fisher's Jeff game. And then real close to that too was Princeton and Rochester. And fun to relive this one too, is I watched some of it yesterday or a couple days ago. But Princeton and Rochester went double OT in 3A. And the thing I remember most from that is Bruce Grimm Jr. From Rochester. They lost the game, but he was fantastic. Had hit a few just really long NBA threes to kind of keep them in it. And he scored 40 points in that game. Princeton was the more physical team, and they ended up winning the game. 2.9 seconds left in OT. Dontre Chavis was fouled and made both free throws, and they ended up winning the game and finished off an undefeated 29-0 season with that 3A championship. So, but yeah, Grimm ends up with 8 3-pointers in that game, and his that's still a state finals record. Had 40 points, which is tied for the all-time fourth all-time in a state finals game. So, that one was a lot of fun and memorable. Another one too, Greensburg and Fort Wayne Concordia. Overtime in 3A. This was 2013. Again, this is a very well played game. Greensburg was down basically the entirety of this game. Didn't even take the lead until overtime. Had not led in the game at all until overtime. So they was constantly battling back. That that Greensburg team was led by Bryant McIntosh, Ryan Wellage, Sean Sellers. Sellers fouled out late in that game, but they came back, took the lead in overtime, and then kind of held on. There was a couple bad turnovers there that were just kind of unforced by Greensburg that kind of gave Concordia a couple more chances. They had 2 threes at the end of the game to try to tie, couldn't quite do it, and Greensburg won. They also ended up winning in 2014, so they went back-to-back in 3A. Excuse me, and it ended up this was the first of the two. So 2 really good teams. Greensburg probably even better the next year. They were basically all juniors, and Wellage was a sophomore in 2013. 2017 was Addicks and Twin Lakes in 3A. Of course, I remember that largely because Oscar Robertson was there to watch and was waving a towel and then putting the medals on the necks of the players after the game. Hard to believe that was 8 years ago already. It doesn't feel like that at all. But that was the game where Addicks and Twin Lakes was really up to the challenge. They were led in that game. They had a pretty good lead in that game into the third quarter. Addicks came back at them down by 9. They came back, had it down. They were down by 2. I'm sorry, they were tied. So 37 seconds left. And tied in that game, Jamal Harris, after a miss by Alex Cooley, Harris rebounded off the left side. Harris was one of the high risers, best jumpers in the state that season. Goes up, gets it, puts it back as he's fouled, and they win by 2. Addicks does. That was the first championship for them since 1959. So that was a pretty cool story. And just to have Oscar Robertson there was just kind of a great bonus to that whole experience. But that was a really cool one. Some of the others you can go ahead and read at indystar.com, like most of these, get into more details on some of them. But kind of went down the rabbit hole on that. So Northwood Guerin Catholic in 2023, that was a 3A game with the overtime. Again, really good finish. Guerin was down, came back, had a chance, and then turned it over, unfortunately, with like 2 seconds left. Another one was Gary Wallace in Washington, overtime in 2010. My memory of that was just an ugly game for a large part, and it was a huge crowd, very into it crowd, I would say. And Gary Wallace ended up they were a team that was down too, had to come back in that game. But that was a battle. Cody Zeller and Brandon Dawson were both juniors, and neither one of them really shot the ball great. But Zeller had 26 rebounds to set a state finals record or tie one. And Dawson had 22 and 11. And LaTroy Taylor for Gary Wallace, I remembered this too. Looking back, he was really good. Hit a 3-pointer with 33 seconds left in regulation. He also had 22 points. Sent that game to overtime. But Washington shot a ton of free throws in that game. And, Zeller ended up the next year, he would win state again. He'd go on to win Mr. Basketball, of course, go to IU. And Gene Miller, the coach, actually just stepped down this year. Ronaldo Thomas was a guy that I talked to a lot, even though, Gary Wallace played down here quite a bit. So we kept in touch. And unfortunately, he passed away in 2021 at the age of 57, but he was a real champion for, his players and Brandon Dawson, especially. Dawson went on, he was a McDonald's All-American, played at Michigan State, of course, but yeah, they were really close. They were close to winning that game. Wallace wasn't even around. It was, I think, 4 years later, the school closed. So, kind of lose part of the history there with Gary Wallace closing, but that was another game that stood out. Park Tudor, Heyman, Bishop Knoll in 2011. Yogi Farrell and Trayvon Blewett against Adonis Filer. That was not a very high-scoring game. Both teams were playing zone, I remember, and it was sort of a low-scoring game, but Blewett had a big game, had 21 points and 8 rebounds, had the go-ahead basket, and Park Tudor, that was kind of the start of their run that they had as well. So, yeah, had a couple others. The 2021 Carmel LN overtime game in 4A. And then the North Davies Lafayette Central Catholic 1A game was also a 2 overtime game in 2022. Had that on there, and then some others listed as well that were close on the list. But I think a lot of the games that I've liked better were probably in the non-state championship games, if you're talking about the tournament. But those were some good ones that I enjoyed. So, again, you can read more about that if you wish at IndyStar.com. And then lastly, just wanted to touch on the futures games. The rosters are set. We should probably be having the Indian All-Stars posted at some point later this week, I would say. I haven't heard exactly for sure when that'll be, but this will be posted Wednesday, so potentially by Friday, I would say that could be out. Always pending something happening, but yeah. So the futures game. This is kind of a new event still, third year of it. First year was at Gamebridge, then it moved to, was at a high school last year. I can't remember. I was at HSC, I believe. Now it's at Fishers this season. So, or this June 2nd, girls at 6, boys at 8. In 24 players on the two teams that are split north and south. So you'll have Matt Roth, Fort Wayne Blackhawk Christian, coaching the north, Sevy Beach from South Ripley, coaching the south. So, and then so you can read again, have all the players listed. Jace Tonigal from Oak Hill, and all these are sophomores. Brody Baker, McCutcheon, Trell Hogue of Fort Wayne Snyder, Chase Devine from Bremen. Griffin Outlarge, LaPorte, Elijah King, South Bend St. Joe, Jahari Miller, Pike, Charles Hardiman, Merrillville, he's a freshman, Amarion Leggett, Blackford, he's also a freshman, Caleb Kuhlman, Penn, a freshman, and then Mac Welker from Homestead, he's a sophomore, and Isaiah Hill, also a sophomore from Pike. That's the North team. South, Cooper Zachary from Fishers, Brandon Hunter from Silver Creek, also a sophomore. Jason Gardner, Fishers, sophomore. Kendrick Martin, Liberty Christian. Derek Cross Jr., Bloomington North, both sophomores. Harper Baker Lands of Plainfield, a sophomore. Jake Grissom of Guerin, a sophomore. J.J. Craig of Warren Central, a sophomore. And then Jalen Mitchell, Devin Bolden, Mitchell from Wrights, Bolden from Cardinal Ritter. Those are also both sophomores. And then Ishmael Katika from Cloverdale, a freshman, and Noah Washington from New Albany, a freshman, are on that South team. So, again, that game played June 2nd at Fishers. Should be a good event, I think, and a chance to see some of the younger players go head-to-head. So that will be, again, June 2nd, Fishers High School, the futures game. Girls at 6, boys roughly at 8 o'clock. So, I think that's about it for now. We'll have, like I said, the Indian All-Stars, Mr. Basketball, will be awarded at the banquet on April 27th. So that's still a few weeks out. But I think that's, pretty much the last thing. The juniors, I touched on that last time we did a video. So I think that's about it. But yeah, again, all of this stuff posted at IndyStar.com, and appreciate it. Have a good night.